Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is to discuss a little bit more in length the narcissistic parent and the effect that it has on the child. One thing we need to understand about a narcissist is that they really treat their children as an object or an extension of themselves, and really tend to objectify the children to their own ends and really use them as an object of manipulation. It can get very severe, so there's a whole spectrum, of course. But when we talk about someone who is narcissistic, they're really looking at their children to reflect themselves back to them rather than them sort of being their own person, their own interest, just developing imperfectly imperfect. They might have flaws. They're human beings. But the narcissist wants to mold and shape them sort of from the outside in. So a narcissist will oftentimes, if they don't get cooperation, if the child is not in line with their outer sort of expectations that they are, sort of objectifying them with, objectifying meaning, you must possess these qualities. It's a condition-based development or exchange in the relationship. So it's feeling that you're going unrecognized, that you're just sort of breathing according to their conforming in their standards. So according to what they want, and so what looks good to them or what they feel is reflecting back that they would be proud of. And that's a normal, natural, healthy narcissistic. There's healthy narcissistic needs where, in other words, you just finished the race at school and you got a blue ribbon, and I did it. That's a healthy narcissistic need. Now, children don't really get a chance in a narcissistic family to feel that independence. They're more, I would say, groomed to be, utilized as a crutch to the parent. In other words, they're to sort of be on the level of relating to their needs, and oftentimes it can be very inappropriate. The child, the narcissist might include them in some very inappropriate conversations that are too adult, not bringing things on the level of the child, not existing there, and keeping a sort of very much a gap, and then sort of an expectation that overrides their needs. And sort of manipulation as a tool, meaning, rewarding certain traits and abilities that make them look good. And, we're talking once again about a narcissistic parent. They will oftentimes become also very agitated and aggressive if the child is not conforming to these, and they might, feel a sense of abandonment or rejection, or feeling that they're present but they don't really belong. And so the child is looking to override that and still connect, because this is their inner circle. This is going to be one of the greatest influencers in their life, is that family unit. And then the role where you find yourself, people then tend to duplicate in their future settings, whether they're work settings, their relationships. And the problem with upbringing with the narcissist is that then there can be a dependency. So where the narcissist is then depending on their child, the child isn't able to sort of leave that trauma bond, which does become a trauma bond because there's an emotionalized, molding. In other words, you have to do this. This is, we can't fool around. It can be very rigid, and it can be fraught with a lot of dramatic outbursts, that are very inappropriate to the amount at hand. You got a grade that isn't, perfectionist, if they're a neurotic sort of perfectionist, and then you can't peel them off the ceiling. You get smacked up to the point where your shirt is off the other side of the room. They might have very stern discipline, or giving you a lot of looks that are showing disapproval, and saying strange things. You should see your face, or why are you so vain, or your hair's like a rat's nest, or you think that hurt, you got more coming. Just very sort of threatening and just objectifying of their children, manipulating them also, so that they can also be the way that they speak to them, as if they're just sort of meant to be entertainers, or supportive of the parent. In other words, take care of the parent's insecurities. Yes, mom, you look good. Or then sort of helping with the fights that the narcissistic create with the parent. So the child might then be forced, when they see this narcissistic rage, if they don't get what they want or have the attention and that entitlement fulfilled, in that sort of humble, peaceful way, if they, rage out in narcissistic rage, which is like a temper tantrum from an adult, then the child might then have to step in and put their hands up and say, stop fighting, stop drinking, stop, eating all this, stop drinking all this, stop spending all this, or, we need this. The child might then have to, stand up and interfere and call like a time out, or they might get into some bad acting out behavior, which then throws the whole family then needing, counseling work. They need to have a come to Jesus meeting. They need to get the family back together. They need to straighten it up and fly right. They can go through a whole host of ups and downs, but the child is sort of in sort of a trauma bond or an attachment, then a sort of dysfunctional attachment with a narcissist, because a narcissist doesn't really attach to people in a healthy, independent, autonomous, shameless way. The narcissist can then tend to shame their children, if they're sort of making decisions on their own and becoming independent, acting as if there's no one upstairs, i.e. you have a sense of judgment and a sense of, positive, self-esteem. They'll make sure that, you don't really get a chance to sort of develop into all this. So, any sort of movement that you make forward towards that might present as a threat to a narcissistic parent, that you might develop differently, that you might develop and separate and have your own life and be able to self-sustain and move wherever you want, or, date whoever you want, or earn as much money as you want and sort of, make your own tracks. And a narcissist oftentimes will try to thwart or hinder that, because if you're not there to satisfy their narcissistic needs, then what good are you? So they might try to hold you back, if you have from your potential. So that is very damaging, because these children need to be in touch with their potential, live, breathe, eat, and sleep their potential, and then, connect with the people within that potential so that they can connect with their masterminds, the people who are thinking more intelligently, who are productive, who are supportive, who are solution oriented, who are creative oriented, who are doing the do, dreaming the dream, walking the walk, talking the talk, playing it hard, working hard, whatever, just going after their goals and not feeling, mediocre or that they're rotting away. I think, a lot of children get sort of trauma bonded with their parents that are narcissistic, particularly if the narcissistic parents have, a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of clout, sort of these accomplishments, and then the children have to just sort of live in the shadows that they don't even need to, with a lot of affluent families, the children don't even need to become, someone who is part of a company or needs to listen to others and be told what to do sometimes. The children then can just sort of not ever be incorrigible or not being told what to do, because as an after effect of being raised by a narcissist, that they need to find their own center now, after being maybe, raised with a lot of enmeshment. Who am I? These sort of existential questions. What am I doing here? Begins to develop, and then they feel that they can't really proceed until they answer these existential questions. So when children are raised by narcissists, they might be heavily then empathetic, because they always have to be attuned to the needs of others in their immediate environment. So this is so practiced and so brought out of them, and surviving, that they develop then this really hardcore empathy, which needs to then be managed and organized, because then they become hypersensitive to the energy of others, what's going on with others, what do you need, and then they'll adopt that support role once again, that prop role, that pawn role, that sort of let me be your crutch. So they might find themselves then enabling the wrong people and just sort of latching on like a latchkey kid to these empty relationships that take them into a dead end. So, children have, a real opportunity to find their own center and then balance after that. And, looking upon their parents with gratitude and humbleness, I think is important, that they then don't feel antagonistic to these people, angry, bitter, upset, resentful, that they're able to just say, this is part of the bigger plan, and so it is, don't worry about it. This is just, part of the journey, and then the acceptance that children who are raised by narcissists need to sort of shed out that sort of protective persona. A lot of children of narcissists, I feel, they have to adopt a similar persona if they're that way, that they can't really have it integrated. So you've got a public persona and then someone who oftentimes is very insecure underneath, even as they enter into adulthood. Why would you be insecure about this? Why would you keep, bringing up these immature conversations? They don't ever seem to sort of grow up into adults. They're more, they can be very playful or comical, but to the point where their maturity is never sort of, they're never sort of coming into a mature aspect, where they're distinguished, where they kind of are, they're grown up, and then they can teach kids, or they can guide kids, or they can be a leader or a manager, or take a step up. They don't oftentimes mature because they don't need to. They're not put into a situation where they have to, or listen to others, or so really there's so many ways that things can develop. I mean, this is just a short blurb, but oftentimes kids, feel that they don't own their own track. They don't own their I feel, if they're raised by a narcissist. They have these sort of superficial expectations, and it's just, there's oftentimes that foundation of closeness, which is bound by empathy, which does not get to be exhibited in the relationship. It's just not part of it. So the relationship can feel severed or spliced, or only part. So, but realize that part is the whole. So you have to kind of get the gestalt of the big picture. It's your body, peace, and harmony. And I hope that these videos help. Please share, subscribe, and join the new Peace and Harmony memberships for more great tools, videos, discussions, support, and workshops. Have a beautiful day.